What is the one thing that separates a man who leaves a lasting impression in the bedroom from one who is quietly forgotten? It is not what you think. It has nothing to do with size, nothing to do with stamina, and nothing to do with some acrobatic move you saw online. In fact, when researchers surveyed over 2,000 women between the ages of 30 and 65 about their most satisfying intimate experiences, 87% of them pointed to the same quality. And here is the part that should make every man over 50 sit up and pay attention. That quality becomes easier to develop, not harder, as you get older. The younger men in the study actually struggled with it. So if you are a man in your 50s, 60s, or beyond, and you have been quietly worrying that your best days in the bedroom are behind you, I need you to hear me out. Because what I am about to share with you today could completely reshape the way you think about intimacy, about connection, and frankly, about yourself. I am Narita, a board-certified urologist with over 22 years of clinical experience. I have sat across from more than 15,000 men, many of them in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, who walked into my office convinced that age had stolen something from them. That somehow, crossing a certain birthday meant they could no longer be the partner they once were. And time after time, I have watched men transform their intimate lives, not with pills or procedures, but by understanding one principle that most doctors never talk about. That is exactly what we are covering today. Before we get into this, gentlemen, do me a quick favor. Tap that like button right now and drop a comment below telling me where you are watching from. I love hearing from men all around the world who are taking their health and their relationships seriously. Your comment also helps other men find this video. And trust me, there are millions of men who need to hear this today. Now let me tell you something that most men over 50 do not realize. There is a silent epidemic happening in bedrooms all across the world, and it has nothing to do with erectile dysfunction or low testosterone. Those are real issues, and we will touch on them. But the epidemic I am talking about is something far more subtle and far more damaging. It is the belief that as you age, you become less desirable, less capable, less relevant as an intimate partner. That belief is not just wrong, it is the very thing that is sabotaging your performance. Here is why. When a man carries that belief into the bedroom, his body responds. Cortisol rises, blood flow constricts, the nervous system shifts into a stress response, and suddenly, the very thing he was afraid of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. He cannot perform, and now he has evidence that confirms his worst fear. I see this cycle destroy the confidence of good men every single week. And the worst part is that their partners are not thinking what these men assume they are thinking. Not even close. So what is this one thing? What did 87% of women identify as the quality that makes an older man exceptional in the bedroom? The answer is presence, not performance. Presence. The ability to be fully there, fully attuned, fully connected to your partner in the moment. And I know that might sound simple, even underwhelming when you first hear it. But let me explain why this is one of the most powerful things a man can bring to intimacy, and why it becomes your greatest advantage after 50. Let us start with the biology, because there is real science behind this. When you are fully present during intimacy, when your mind is not racing with worry about whether you will maintain an erection or whether you are lasting long enough, something remarkable happens in your brain. Your prefrontal cortex, the overthinking part, quiets down. Your limbic system, the emotional center, activates, and your body begins to release a cascade of oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphins in a pattern that is fundamentally different from the stress-driven arousal of a younger man. This neurochemical cocktail does two things. First, it creates a deeper sense of connection with your partner that she can literally feel. Second, and this is the part most men do not know, it actually improves your physical performance. Oxytocin enhances blood flow to the pelvic region. It supports erectile quality. It delays the refractory period. So being present is not just some emotional nicety. It is a biological performance enhancer. Now let me tell you what this looks like in real life. I had a patient, I will call him Richard, 63 years old, retired engineer. Richard came to me because he was experiencing intermittent erectile difficulties. He had already tried the medications, and they worked, but he told me something I hear constantly. He said, "Doc, even when the pills work, something still feels off. My wife and I used to have this connection, and now it feels mechanical." When I asked Richard what was going through his mind during intimacy, he listed about 12 different worries. Am I hard enough? Is she bored? Am I taking too long? Should I switch positions? Is she comparing me to when I was younger? His body was in the room, but his mind was running a performance review. I worked with Richard on what I call the presence protocol, which I will share with you in a few minutes. 6 weeks later, he came back to my office, and this is what he told me. He said, "I feel like I am 25 again, but better, because now I actually know what I am doing." His wife later sent me a note that simply said, "Thank you for giving me my husband back." That is the power of presence, gentlemen. Let me walk you through why women respond to this so powerfully, because understanding this will change everything for you. When a woman is with a partner who is fully present, she feels safe. And safety, from a neurological standpoint, is the single greatest predictor of female arousal and satisfaction. This is not opinion, this is neuroscience. The female arousal response is profoundly connected to the parasympathetic nervous system, that is, the rest and connect system. When she feels that her partner is rushing, distracted, or performing, her nervous system picks up on it instantly, even if he thinks he is hiding it well. Her body subtly shifts into a guarded state, and full arousal becomes physiologically difficult. But when she senses that her partner is calm, attentive, and genuinely tuned into her, her parasympathetic system activates fully. Blood flow increases, sensitivity heightens, emotional barriers dissolve. And this is where it gets really interesting for older men. Younger men are often operating from a place of urgency and ego. They are performance-driven. Their testosterone levels push them towards speed and intensity. Women in the study described encounters with younger men as often feeling rushed, disconnected, or performative. But an older man, a man who has the emotional maturity and the patience to slow down and truly be with his partner, that is something women described as rare and deeply satisfying. I want to tell you about another patient. Thomas, 58, had been divorced for 4 years and had recently started dating again. He was terrified. He told me he felt like damaged goods. He said, "I am not the man I was at 35. What woman is going to want this version of me?" Thomas was convinced that his slightly softer erections and his longer time to arousal made him inadequate. I asked Thomas to try something. Instead of focusing on what his body could not do the way it used to, I asked him to focus entirely on connection. Eye contact, touch, breathing together, being curious about his partner rather than anxious about himself. Thomas came back 2 months later with a completely different energy. He told me that the woman he had been seeing said something to him that stopped him in his tracks. She told him, "You are the first man who has ever made me feel like I was the only person in the world." She was 49, and she had been in relationships with men of all ages. And it was Thomas, the man who thought he was damaged goods, who gave her that experience. That is what presence does. Now let me give you the practical side of this, because I do not want you leaving this video without a clear plan. The first element of the presence protocol is what I call the 60-second reset. Before any intimate encounter, take 60 seconds to yourself. Close your eyes. Take 5 slow, deep breaths. In through the nose for 4 counts, hold for 4, out through the mouth for 6. This activates your vagus nerve and shifts your nervous system out of performance anxiety mode and into connection mode. It sounds almost too simple, but the physiological effect is immediate and measurable. Your heart rate variability improves, cortisol drops, and blood flow to the pelvic region increases. One of my patients, Gerald, 71 years old, told me that this single practice did more for his confidence than any medication he had ever taken. The second element is what I call sensory anchoring. During intimacy, when you notice your mind starting to wander into worry, I want you to anchor yourself back to the present moment through your senses. Focus on the warmth of your partner's skin. Listen to her breathing. Notice the scent of her hair. This is not poetry, gentlemen. This is applied neuroscience. When you engage your sensory cortex, it pulls neural resources away from your prefrontal cortex, which is where all that anxious overthinking lives. You are literally rewiring your brain's response to intimacy. Over time, with consistent practice, your default state during intimacy shifts from anxiety to presence. Most of my patients report a noticeable difference within 3 to 4 weeks. The third element, and this is the one that my patients tell me makes the biggest